And of course, the issue of vote buying is a major issue, which we'll bring up in the next few minutes as our conversation continues right here. But we can see right behind me, of course, you can see the polling units. I understand that this is one of the largest polling units right here in the state, in Ekiti. It has about 2,000 voters, registered voters in this polling unit. And you can see already it's few minutes before voting commences. In another 10 minutes, voting will start. And you can see this is one of the earliest polling units to get set for this election. Before 8 a.m., they're already set up. The areas are already being cordoned. And in fact, voters already checking out their names on the voter register. Of course, let's get the conversation started again with the conduct of this exercise and the plan that INEC is putting in place. I'm being joined now by one of the election observers. Mr. Ezenwawagu will be joining me right on the set to give us a sense of his expectations and, of course, what he can see. You can see it right here. Thank you so much, Mr. Ezenwawagu.
Yeah.
We are here again.
You also are here again.
Thank you so much for coming. Are you impressed so far what you can see from Ekiti?
Well, from a few places, the enthusiasm looks exciting, but it's too early to make a call. But if you've been moving around by 8 o'clock, 8:10, just 10 minutes to the opening of the polls, in many of the centers, we are seeing people trudging out from their homes, and I hope that is what's also playing out in other places. But overall, I think we're good.
Oh, great. So that's good news. You know, one thing I've realized about elections are that you can't judge by where you are standing.
Absolutely.
You need to also judge by what is happening elsewhere.
Yes.
Things might be different where you're standing, but when you move some kilometers away, it might totally be different. But, I mean, in terms of expectation for this election, there are a lot of expectation. We saw the INEC chairman's press release talking about the expectation of INEC from the voters and from other stakeholders. Specifically, if you look at what has happened in the past, INEC chairman has said this is the very first major election INEC will be conducting in the post-signing of the electoral law. What are your expectations on this?
Well, the first expectation will be that technology will not disappoint us, that we will see an improvement in election result management, which will be heaped on the beavers, how the beavers behave in Ekiti, and more especially how real time we're able to get results posted to the portals and all of those things. And then more importantly, I was looking at the security officials when you were talking to the commissioner here. If you remember, the DIG promised that they were going to have identification other than the INEC tags. That is not happening. I've looked around. I've seen all of them that came on the entourage and the ones that are saying here there is no identification. And he did tell us that identification was brought from Abuja. Because if you remember 2015, Gwenga, we saw the incursion of unidentified so-called security officials moving in unmarked vehicles and rest of.
So it's in 2014,
and we raised that issue with him when he had the roundtable with the media and civil society a few days ago. I'm not seeing that, and I think that we should call attention to that so that we are able to identify security officials who are on election duty. And the reason for that is that many times we focus attention on INEC. As you can see, they've set up people cordoned off the whole area. If the other stakeholders in the election pyramid do not cooperate with INEC, we are not going to see the kind of election that we are. So we have to also focus attention on the security officials and the political parties, how they are behaving. But it's too early now, but I need to call attention to that so that if they are paying attention, they should distribute those identification so that we are able to know those who are on duty and those who are coming to cause trouble.
But my watch here is 6 minutes before the commencement of voting across all the areas of the state. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we anticipate the commencement of voting. Stay with us right here on the continuing coverage of the Ekiti State Governorship Election 2022. We give you all the details, last you need to know, right here on the ground. We'll be right back, everyone. Much for staying with us right here at the St. Michael Secondary School at Jeloso in Ekiti, the Ekiti State capital, where we're monitoring and covering for you the Ekiti State Governorship Election 2022. Of course, a few things that you need to know. The voting itself starts at 8:30 a.m. and closes at 2:30 p.m. Normally, what we'll see is anyone who is on the queue before that time will be allowed to vote, no matter how long it takes until the last person votes. Let's get back into the conversation. Ezenwa Nwagu, a member of the board of Yaga African Election Observer and also a member of the Election Situation Room. Thank you so much, Mr. Nwagu, for your time. If you look at what INEC has done vis-a-vis the electoral law and the inputs that have been put into the new law, what are those areas you think that the political parties, the voters, need to pay attention to?
Well, first and foremost is to ensure that the beavers operate maximally. And then at the end of the day, if you are not captured, because it's about ensuring that voter identification theft is minimized. Now your facials are captured. It's not just your thumbprint like what we had with the smart card reader. So that's important. And you know, if it's not captured 1, 2, 3 times, then you can then get in the troubleshooters, the RATAC, the technicians who come in to resolve the problem. And if at the end of the day...
Sorry, Mr. Nwagu, we can officially say now that voting officially has commenced. This is the official hour, the moment where voting will start at every polling unit that is set for this exercise. I don't know if one of our cameras can focus on the voting points where the voters have queued up, and perhaps let's see what exactly is going on at the different points where the voting has since commenced right here at the St. Michael School in Jeloso, where, of course, the attention will be on the voting part, because now what Mr. Nwagu was talking about, the beavers, is a novel idea that INEC has created into the electoral process in Nigeria. It does one thing. It synthesizes all of the accreditation processes in one place.
Yes, yes. And that's what is the idea. The idea is to ensure that nobody that has the PVC that doesn't belong to him is allowed to vote. So, you know, we had people who had more than 1, 2, 3 PVCs, and we are bragging about it, taking it all around. But now that theft has been undermined by the beavers. You no longer can do that. So we have to pay attention to that. It's important that this technology that is being used to enhance electoral integrity is oversighted by the media and civil society. We were all in Anambra. We saw the challenge that the beavers posed. We were in FCT elections. We saw that the beavers posed some challenges. We also saw that the result management in the FCT was not as timely as we would have expected. But there are reassurances by INEC that some of those issues have been taken care of. And INEC came to Ekiti few weeks ago and did a mock test of the beavers in across 12 locations in the different senatorial districts. As insignificant as that number may be, but it at least signposts the fact that there is a resolve by the electoral management body to ensure that this technology is tested and it can be used. But, you know, like somebody joked, I hope it's not going to be like preparation for the Super Eagle match, where we are all excited and then we get to the field and we are disappointed. But we're here. The outlook is positive. We are hoping that all of this that INEC has thrown in manifests into results, in this election, and we are looking out for that. It's too early, but polls have started. The people of Ekiti are already on the queue. Is to continue to see how all of these stakeholders, the security agents, INEC, and the electorates themselves, contribute to credible, fair, free, acceptable, and inclusive election today.
Now, one thing that the Beavers also contributes is the fact that it brings the biometrics. Now, if it misses your fingerprint, it will not miss your face. Your facials.
Yes.
Your eyes, the entirety of your face, and all of this has been captured in your identity.
The uniqueness of every individual's facials.
Yeah. And in fact, they say that no two people have the same fingerprint.
Yes, that can happen with all the palm kernel that we were using and all of those things. That has been taken over now. People go to calendar. Take somebody's picture and superimpose it on what we had in the past. But that's why you now have to smile. You have to do all kinds of things so that at the end of the day, it's very clear that you are the bearer of that permanent voter's card that gives you the access to cast your vote.
For those of us, who are a bit more familiar with the process, now the Beavers does the pre, the voting, and the post-voting. So what happens is that it does the accreditation, and after the accreditation, it also enhances your ability to be able to vote.
Yes.
Then after the voting, when all is done, it's the same device that is being used by the electoral officials to capture the results and then post it on the IREP.
Yes. So all of those processes is geared to enhancing electoral integrity and inspire confidence in the voters that their votes will really count, unlike what we used to have. We used to say, when we were in this program, we used to argue that the weakest link is the collation.
Absolutely.
So the result management has been enhanced in a way that we can follow that process. At the end of the day, we can from the polling unit to the ward. What happens in between that time? There is now a bimodal, a two-way traffic through which you can continue to follow the integrity of the electoral process.
If you jump this, you will be stopped at the next.
Yes. So at least now, when results are taken manually from the polling unit, they are transmitted real time. So when you get to the other point, the paper trail is following it. So it's no longer just the paper trail that can be mutilated, that can, all sorts of things can happen. Now, and the Electoral Act has now made it incumbent on the presiding officers to post those results real time. And so this bimodal process has helped in enhancing the integrity of the electoral process. But all of this is on paper. All of this is on paper. We are hoping that we are in Ekiti now. Very soon we will move out to Ikere, we will move out to Emure, we will move out to F1 and the rest, all of these places to ensure that what we are seeing in Ado here is also replaying in all of those places. So
before I allow you go, Mr. Nwagu, the Commissioner of Police told us about 3 areas that are flashpoints. Idosi, Ekiti, Omuo. What are your expectations?
I don't believe in flashpoints
for historically speaking. As
an election
2014.
As an election
when Fayemi got the election against Shagwani, it was a very major issue. Or Ekiti in 2014. We've seen this thing happen historically speaking. There are tents, there are places that poses threat, and you cannot look away from those areas.
I've observed the election enough to know that this is a sociological situation. The situation can be fluid. The place you think will be flashpoints may not be the flashpoint. So what is important is that there has to be vigilance, continued vigilance by security agents. Let us not undermine anywhere and say, oh, it's not a flashpoint. I agree with you that all of those areas can be issues, but in election period, the politicians don't take anything away from them. They spring surprises on you. You can go and be focusing your attention in those areas, and they come out in Igede or they come out in Aramoku. So just ensure that we put the burden of policing this election on the security agents. All of Ekiti State must be secured for the voters. There are places where voters are flogged, they are intimidated. We raised that at the INEC stakeholder meeting, where voters are intimidated and prevented from casting their vote. We have called attention to those areas, but like I said, having observed the election the way we have done, both of us, I have come to that conclusion that I don't like this flashpoint thing. Focus attention on everywhere and secure the elections. Yes.
I'll still get you back on the field. Mr. Nzewawagu, always a pleasure having you around.
Thank you.
To give us insight on what you have seen and this electoral process. Thank you so much, Mr. Nzewawagu.
Thank you.
A member of the board of Yiaga Africa, and of course, an election observer in this very election. If I may give you an understanding of what is happening before I bring in just another respondent into this process, what is going on right now in the different areas. People queuing up. You can see the queue, very long queues, and of course the expectations are that there is going to be a very reasonable turnout in this electoral process. Let me give you an understanding and just take you around just in a moment, so you can see right there. How long and how far the queue is. Just about this point. This is one of the largest polling units that you can find here in Ekiti. Ekiti has one of the largest voting population in Ekiti State. So if you come straight here, you see it goes on and on, on and on, and on and on, and it goes right up there where the cubicles are. And of course, you can see the voters. That is their first point of call. They go there to check their names on the electoral list. If you find your name and your number, then you move up there to get a tally and you go onto the queue. That is the process, and then you get your accreditation done. When your accreditation is done, then you'll be able to vote. And of course, this is not the only point. There is another polling unit around this area. Don't forget that people who are physically challenged, the elderly, are going to be given some priorities. And this is another polling unit right here in the same premises. Of course, let's get the conversation continued on what we can see and what we know as of this time. I'm being joined by Mr. Bukola Idowu, Executive Director of Kimpact, who are also a team of election observers right here in Ekiti State. Thank you so much, Mr. Idowu, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Good
what are from what you have seen so far, what are your what perspective do you have about this election so far?
Yes, I think with what we have seen so far is encouraging. I must talk. I mean, first of all, say about the turnout here. Even we look at where we are presently, and on our way here, touching one or two polling units, we've seen people moving into the polling unit. But of course, election just started officially like about 10 or 15 minutes ago. But I want to say from experience, it's always difficult to judge the outcome of an election from a singular standpoint. But we are also looking at a situation where we are likely going to have higher turnout today in this election compared to the last election in 2018.
What gives you that optimism?
Yes, what gives us that optimism is that one of the reasons is, number one, the new registration that just took place, and in terms of the addition to the voter register. That is number one. Number two is also the introduction of the beavers. So what it means is that if the beavers work effectively today, we are likely going to have higher turnout. One of the problems the beavers is expected to solve is to quicken the process, to make it faster. So, and if that is working, so you begin to see people calling them, from the queue, they are going to begin to call their neighbors that you can come, this is working, this is getting faster, and that is one of the things we are expected to see today. So we expect higher turnout with the beaver, introduction of the beaver, because it's expected. In the past, I mean, one of our studies shows that people are discouraged because they stay longer, because the card reader malfunction at some point. But with the introduction of the card reader, we expect that this whole process is going to be faster, and at the same time, that people are going to come out.
I mean, you also do some preliminary investigation, and you look at things on the ground. The Commissioner of Police he spoke about the flashpoint, Omuo, Idosi, Oye Ekiti. What are your thoughts about these areas?
Yeah, I mean, I think the commissioner was right. Those also were part of the places we touched and then highlighted in our flashpoint identification while we were doing that in Ekiti State. Now, those places are flashpoint number one, and if you look at the recent violence we've tracked some to those particular locations. I think, but the other location we expected, I mean, the commissioner did not even had was Ikole, and there is another one, Bonyi, that these are places we identify. One of the things you also need to know about Ekiti State is because of the proximity to Kogi State, I mean Ondo State, and then you look at Osun State. So, but when you look at Kogi State, you look at the activity of kidnappers around Kogi and bandits. I mean, kidnappers specifically around Kogi, and then you look at the recent happening in Ondo State. So the proximity alone, and then you look at the trajectory of what has been happening in Ekiti in terms of kidnapping, and then in those places where those things have happened. So you put all these places at potential flashpoint that the security agencies need to put a lot of attention to be able to curb any issue of electoral violence that may likely erupt in most of these places. We expect, because we've escalated some of these things, and I'm happy the Commissioner of Police is talking about this. So one of the things we expect is that the security agencies will deploy appropriate response into those places, and that is what we expect.
So fantastic. So I mean, one is hoping that all of these possible security threats will not play out eventually.
Yes.
But I mean, if you look at history of election in this state, what lesson have we taken out of the history?
Yes, so two things here. One of our concern again is that during the election we may not even have issues around violence, but we are also concerned about post-election violence, and that is what we need to look at, because election ending on election at the close of election, that does not mean that the whole election has been tagged peaceful. Until we stay and be vigilant, the security agency need to stay and be vigilant and look at towards the post-election violence. Now, in terms of the lesson we have picked from all this, number one, Ekiti political consciousness is high, and that is one. The political activity is high, and again, one of the things that is rampant in Ekiti is the issue of fake news. That is also a trigger for electoral violence.
We've seen a lot of that.
We've seen a lot of that.
From yesterday, a lot of this happening. The news going around that some candidates have stepped down, have withdrawn from the race.
And I was also encouraging the supporter to move to other parties. So these are potential for violence, and this is fake news. So one of the things we need to do is the stakeholder, the security agency, the stakeholders, every hand need to be on deck. The people that will need to respond appropriately to fake news need to be there. The security that need to be proactive, because whether we like it or not, Ekiti has serious history of electoral violence, and we have seen that over and over. Just recently, I mean, with the fracas, somebody died in Omo. So
just a by-election.
Just a by-election. So, and in Ekiti East too, is going to be a combination of by-election and the governorship election they will be having in Ekiti East presently today.
And also, I mean, I'd like you to touch quickly before I bring in just another respondent on the issue of the gladiators from around the same area. We have about 2 of them in the same senatorial district. They're battling the soul of that area. They want the vote of that area. Ekiti Central, they don't have as much. And in the south and the north, we have the different major candidates in these areas. What does that, the intensity of that kind of contest, what does it bring to the race?
Well, so what that does is that you look at the Ekiti Central is likely going to be the battleground. and that is it. Because when you look at the Ekiti South and Ekiti North, this is where most of these candidates are spread across, even including their deputy. So you look at the Ekiti Center, for me, that is going to be the battleground. That is where everybody wants to move in to get the vote, because they are likely going to get a consolidation vote from their senatorial district. So I think that Ekiti Central is where the battleground is. And when you look at it, the political party has they strategically placed themselves and picked their deputies from their running mates from other senatorial districts. So when you look at it critically, and that is what we are looking at, that everybody wants to come into Ekiti Central to pick those votes, and that is where the battleground is, and that is where we need to look into that place. And incidentally, again, Ekiti Central also has the highest voter register. The number of registered voters come from Ekiti Central. So this is where the battleground is for me, and I think the security agencies all handed to be on deck. And in terms of deployment, because the security agency, for instance, the police are deploying 17,000 personnel, but we want to see them across all the local government. In most cases, you have chunk of them at INEC office and at the state capital, but this time around, we want to see them at all the local governments, and so that we can have a peaceful election this time around.
Mr. Bukalaido of Kimpak, thank you so much for joining us. At some point, we'll touch base with you again, and hopefully all this goes well. Officially, the voting has commenced at about every point that they're ready for this exercise here in Ado-Ekiti, St. Michael's Secondary School in Ajilosun area of Ado-Ekiti. Of course, the voting has commenced. The voters have thronged these areas, and they're ready to get on. And of course, what we are expecting is, as long as this is happening, hopefully it will be peaceful all the way. Let's speak with Mr. Aruna, who is a commandant with the NSC. Please, could you come forward? Thank you so much for coming right here on Channels Television. If you could turn just a bit. Thank you so much. I know you and your men, your attention is going to be majorly on most infrastructures, national infrastructures. What are you saying? What are your expectations? How many of your men do you have on ground? Let's start with that.
Well, for this particular election in Ekiti, we have 9,747 men on ground. These are deployed across the state to secure critical infrastructures of government, and some of them are also in polling units to assist, to complement the efforts of the lead agencies, that is the Nigerian police, to ensure that we have a hitch-free election. But we have to have it at the back of your mind that we're also critical stakeholders as far as election duty is concerned.
All right, so you look at what is happening generally. What are the major critical infrastructures that you're looking at in Ekiti State?
In Ekiti, we are looking at INEC offices. We are looking at institutions, higher institutions of learning in the state. Then some other federal offices like federal secretariats, state secretariats, and even human, special, can I say, some of the buildings of even human beings that are prone to violence in cases of election like this.
What are your threat analysis telling you?
For now, the threat analysis tells me that there are some few flashpoints.
Have you identified these areas?
We have identified those areas.
Which are these areas?
Well, it's not what I will tell you on air.
we understand a few of them. Boeing, Idosi, and a few others.
They are adequately being policed, properly manned to ensure that nothing of negative comes out of those areas. And again, we are regarding the whole of Ekiti, all everywhere. We are not regarding, let's say, a particular area, these are flashpoints. No, we are regarding the mode of deployment this time around. We assume that everybody everywhere is a flashpoint, so we can adequately take care of anything that comes in synergy with all other security agencies. We are not doing it alone. We are working hand in hand with all other security agencies.
So, in essence, what are your expectations for this exercise? Based on the threat analysis, what you can see, and what do you hope that will come out? You've done your threat analysis. What you're saying at the moment, does it make you happy? Do you have any concern?
Very happy. election is going on for now. It's going on very smoothly, very, very smoothly. And you can see that the turnout has been very, very impressive. All the areas I've visited before coming to this place. So we are expecting a very, very positive outcome of this election.
All right, so interesting. And going forward, I mean, you've been in other areas where elections have held before now. What are, in comparative analysis, what do you see that is majorly different? Has there been any lesson that have been taken away from past experience?
Yes, from the past experience, I was in Anambra. I can see that the turnout here is far, far better than what we have in Anambra. And again, the voters are very, very orderly and peaceful in Ekiti. So it's a major departure from some of the elections I've witnessed. Again, INEC are on time. The materials came in on time and people have started voting. But in some areas where I've been to, there's a great improvement, a marked departure from the past, that materials always come in late. But this time around, that was not the case. The materials come in on time and the voters are online. They started voting on time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Aruna. I'd like to leave you so that you can get on with protection of the critical infrastructure that you have. Thank you so much for coming. Yes, I appreciate it.
All right.
So, yeah, you have it. We are hearing and understanding failure of the beavers in some areas, and calling for help by the INEC officials in some of the areas where our reporters are on the ground. Just before we allow you to go into, of course, a sunrise, our breakfast Saturday morning show. Let me just give you an understanding of what is happening just in a few seconds. Of course, what you can see as far as your eyes can see, the cues, the enthusiasm, the anticipation in the voters. You can see on how much they've been able to display that in the coming out early enough. And this exercise started early here at the St. Michael's School here in Ajilosu, Ekiti, the Ekiti State capital, where Channel Television is on the ground, and we're covering for you every senatorial district that makes up Ekiti State, and we're live for you to give you all you need to know as far as this election is concerned. Everyone brace up, because at 5 p.m., Channel Television will bring to you what you have not seen before in Nigeria's election. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Stay with us right here on the station as we tune out to sunrise at the top of the hour. I'm sure Akimbaloe. I'll see you in a moment.